All right, good afternoon, everybody. We are on Module E, which is our final live session, and we are going to be discussing good documentation practices. Um, I'm not sharing my screen, am I?
You are. I can see it.
I can see it too.
Okay. Okay. So, our topics for discussion today, we're going to go over what a quality record is, discuss the acronym ALCOA, what the letters stand for, and how they impact good documentation. And then we'll go over how to properly correct an error on paper, on any controlled paperwork. So the first thing we want to do is define what is a record. So a record is a document, or it can be an electronic file that contains results we've achieved or provides evidence of activities performed. So we go back to our cough syrup that we were making. Our record would contain our test results. It would contain evidence of cleaning. It would contain evidence of any in-process quality checks, when the check was performed, who performed the check, how many units were checked. And then a record is going to tell a story of activities that were done. Depending on different companies, you can have different formats. You may have paper, notebooks. Some companies call them log books. We can use printouts, computer systems, etc., to maintain our records. So why are records important? So 21 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Section 211, says that we have to maintain written records so that we can use data within to evaluate the quality of our products. We use those records to provide evidence that we've done our job correctly and that we've made our products correctly. And then finally, our records are evidence that our products meet all the necessary specifications. So if we make a batch today, May the 10th, 2023, our record should be conducive enough that 10 or 15 years from now, we can go back and still know exactly how we made that product. All of our testing was successful. If we have a test that was not successful, or we have a deviation, that we properly investigated it, resolved it, implemented a correction if need be, or preventative action. So it's important that we document our task correctly today so that if somebody else looks at this information in the future, it can be readily understood. So a common statement that we use is, if it isn't written down, we can't prove it happened. We have, surveillance cameras, and a lot of companies have surveillance cameras, but surveillance tapes are not going to be able to capture every single activity that goes on in a facility. And then we have to worry about storage space. So ever so regular, our video is going to be overwritten just because we ran out of space. Kind of similar when on our cell phones, when we run out of storage, you either have to expand your storage if you can, you have to get a new phone, or you have to delete some files, or you can't save any new pictures or any new videos until you make space. So we have the same issues sometimes with video storage, just on a larger scale. And all employees are responsible for records. Any employee who documents entries is responsible for making sure that we record accurate information. So why is good documentation important? So we know that it's outlined in the Code of Federal Regulations. We know that it's there. And medical device and pharmaceutical manufacturers, we are bound by those regulations. The FDA, as well as additional international health and safety regulations. So if you ship to Europe, you're often subject to the EU Annex, which is a sort of equivalent to the Food and Drug Administration. So they have their standards where if we're shipping product to Milan, we have to meet not only our standards, but we have to meet their standards as well because we're selling product in their market. And then by having good documentation, it makes sure that our activities align and meet the regulations. So if there's a regulation that says you have to complete good manufacturing practices on a sufficient frequency. That's the only thing that the regulation says. It doesn't tell us, we have to do it every 6 months, every 2 years, every 5 years, just a sufficient frequency. So by documenting our training properly, we can provide proof that we've met that regulation. Here's our GMP training, and here's our documentation that our employees have completed this training. So if we were having an audit, we would get a check. Yep, we've met that regulation. And then we're gonna audits occur routinely to ensure compliance. And then any investigations that we have for out of specification products or customer complaints, we can go back and pull our documentation as objective support or evidence. So if we have an issue per se where our customer is saying, I received an eye infection from your product and it was this bacteria. It was bacteria XYZ. And we perform testing on our tanks for bacteria X, Y, and Z. We could use that documentation to say, well, we believe with this degree of certainty that the bacteria did not originate in our product. So it's paramount that we do document our activities so we can go back as needed. So Brianna, we should have a poll that you can launch. Says, who is responsible for recording accurate information? Is it management, quality control, all employees, or human resources?
I've got 4 of 4 saying all employees.
So we were 100% correct on that question. So great job. All employees bear the responsibility of recording accurate information. So great job.
Ruth, can I ask a quick question before you go on?
Yes, ma'am.
When you mentioned the foreign countries and complying with their foreign regulations, is it comprehensive or is it and? Is it and or? Like, do we have to first pass our regulations before we can comply with theirs? Do we create specific to only theirs, even though it may conflict with our own?
It will depend on the nature of the change. So we have an entire department when they update the standards, it may be 50, 60 pages sometimes. And that department goes through those standards one by one to make sure that we are meeting the standards. To give you an example, we have to update our labeling process for a Asian Pacific customer. And Asia Pacific, I always want to say the word is one word. And they gave us until a certain day to be compliant. And if we are not compliant on that day, then we can't send product to them. And what they're asking is more strict than what the FDA requires. But if we want to sell to them, we have to go a level above. So if it were an issue where we might conflict, then that will go to our compliance team to figure out how are we going to mitigate the two. If I have one standard telling me to do task A and one standard telling me to do task B, and I can't do them simultaneously, then they will have to figure, address how are we going to handle that. Did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, so we have a question. It should be a poll as well, Brianna. A blank is a document or electronic file stating the results achieved or providing evidence of activities performed. Is that going to be our SOP, a record, a test method, or a regulation standard? Where would we record our test results? Or where would we go to find evidence of what we've done?
Just one more second for the last person to answer. Okay, we have 2 for SOP and we have 2 for record.
Okay, so we are half and half. So the correct answer is record. However, our standard operating procedure is going to provide the steps to get the results. So let's say we are doing a microbiology test for, let's just say, E. coli. Our standard operating procedure is going to walk me through how to do the test. I have to collect my sample. I have to make sure that I remove all the air. I have to make sure I don't contaminate it. I have to incubate it for 10 days, and then I'm going to read it using this machine. That's our standard operating procedure. Our record is going to be, what were my results? When I read sample 1, did it have E. coli? Yes or no? When I did the test results for sample 2, did I have E. coli? So the SOP and the record work together, where the SOP guides our actions to obtain the results that we document on the record. Anybody have any questions on the difference between the two, between SOP and record? Okay. Moving on to ALCOA. So ALCOA is the acronym that we commonly use when we are documenting tasks on our records and when we have to make corrections, because most facilities, you cannot use pencil on your records. So inevitably, everybody makes mistakes writing with a pen, not being able to erase, and we have to make sure that we are making that correction properly. So the A stands for attributable, and we're going to go through each one of these in detail. The L stands for legible. The C is contemporaneous. It's just a big word that says it's documented in real time. We do not backdate information, and we do not sign for a task in the future that I haven't done. So it's 1:15 now. Let's say that I know I'm going to do a quality inspection at 1:30. I can't go at 1:15 and go ahead and put that quality check has passed, because technically I'm falsifying, because I don't know, in fact, will the check pass at 1:30 or not. And on the other side, let's say I did a check at 1 o'clock. I was talking to my friend and time just got away from me. And it's 2 o'clock now, and I forgot to document it. We shouldn't go back and document without notifying your lead or supervisor on how to properly acknowledge, hey, my check did pass at 1 o'clock. I just didn't document it until 2 o'clock. So that is not any type of falsification. We just forgot to document it. And the O stands for original. We don't use pencils, so therefore everything that we write with pen is indelible. It cannot be removed. We do not use sticky notes for any quality records. And then accurate, we want to write down true data. no opinions in our records. So for good documentation to be attributable, we should always be able to tell who completed a task. So we want to make sure that we sign our name or initials as we're required, and then always provide the full day, month, day, and year. When one or more people complete a task, all who completed the task should sign for that task. And you never want to sign your name for performing a task when someone else actually performed it. So let's say Michelle and I, we are cleaning the line, and one of the jobs on the line is to mop the floor. Well, Michelle mopped the floor. I kind of glanced over and seen her, but she forgot to sign for it. I cannot sign as completing that task because I was not the one that completed it. So I would want to, remind Michelle, hey, you forgot to sign for the mopping, so that the task is signed by the person that actually performed it, so that that is attributable to that employee on that task. So if there was any question or concern with the mop, they could say, hey, well, let's ask Michelle, did she notice anything odd on the floor yesterday? Did it seem, more tacky than usual? Was it really dirty? Did you notice anything out of the ordinary? And they would know who to actually follow up with. The second letter in our acronym, the L, is legible. We do not use any gel pens, no erasable pens. We want to use only blue or black ink for records. Of course, if you have a personal notebook or your personal agenda, you can use whatever type of ink you want to use, because those are your personal items. But any record that is part of our quality system, part of our production floor, we want to make sure we're using blue or black pens. We do not use highlighters on quality records. They do not copy well. We do not do write-overs. This we'll go over in how to make a correction. This would be if I accidentally put a 5 and it's supposed to be an 8, and I try to take the top of the 5 and make it look like an 8. A person reviewing it can tell that it was a write-over. So we want to just make sure that we correct it properly. We do not use whiteout tape or fluid on our records. Again, if you have a personal agenda or these are your personal notes, if that is acceptable in your facility, you can, only on your personal documents that are not part of any records. And then we want to be sure that we always keep our original information visible. So that way, if we have any questions, any concerns, we always have that original information there. The C, the third letter in our acronym, contemporaneous, is just making sure our information is recorded in a timely manner. So we want to get in the habit of documenting our tasks immediately after performing. So if you have 10 tasks to do as part of you cleaning a line or performing a job, if you're able to document, and it's feasible for you to document each one as you go, that's the best practice, so that you do not forget to document. The O, making sure our good documentation is original. All our information is recorded directly on the proper form or the computer system. We do not use scrap paper or sticky notes. You're more than welcome to have Post-it notes if this is your personal desk. We do have sticky notes, office supplies, but we cannot document any product critical, any test results on scrap paper or sticky notes. Each time that you transfer data, you're more likely to make a mistake each time that the likelihood of a mistake increases. So if I'm taking volume measurements and the measurement is, let's say 15.3, and I write it on my hand or a sticky note, and then I go write it on the batch record, maybe my handwriting was the best and I put 1508 instead of 1503. or maybe I put 13.5 instead of 15.3, and I switched the 5 and the 3 around. When if we document directly to the record, we do not have to worry about losing information during the transcription process. And the final letter is accurate. We want to make sure that the information that we're recording is truthful. By applying your signature, you're confirming, hey, this was my result. This is the task I completed. We assume by our signature that information is true. And then information should not be falsified because the information is certified by your signature, and you do not want to include any opinions on any good manufacturing practices, documents, or record. Only state facts. So if I'm running line D today and the line is just running, it's running horrible. The line is crashing, it's stopping every 10 or 15 minutes. The bottles will not go through the machine. I would not want to put on my record, this line is trash and we need to get a new line. We wouldn't want to put that on our documentation. We would want to capture, okay, this is how many machine jams that I had during my shift, which via the machine jams, a engineer or someone in quality can see that the machine was having trouble. So we want to be sure that we stay objective, and that we do not include any opinions that would be subject to interpretation. So we're going to go through a little exercise with Terry. So Terry is a machine operator. He's considered a senior operator at his pharmaceutical supplement company. He's been there 19 years. And we're going to evaluate some different situations and decide if we think we've violated Alcoa and what the correction should be. All right, so the first one, Terry spilled some alcohol on his paperwork. The entries are smeared and unrecognizable. Terry does not notify anyone since quality can fix the paperwork later. So from Alcoa, we have attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, or accurate. Which one of those 5 do you think Terry has violated? And you can select your answer in the poll.
Three of 3 says legible.
Yep. So you guys got that answer correct. Good documentation should be legible. By failing to correct this issue, Terry has turned in paperwork that is no longer legible. So great job on that example. We'll move to the next one. While completing a volume check, Terry's pen breaks. He has a Sharpie nearby and writes the volume checks down on a sticky note. He will then transfer the results later when he gets a new pen. What do we think Terry has violated in this situation? This one has two possible. So if you're stuck between 2, it is two violations that he's actually doing in this instance.
I have one that says C and one that says O.
Okay. So for this instance with Terry, we could consider it being contemporaneous depending on how long it took him to get the Sharpie. Let's say he didn't get it for an hour or 2, then yeah, because that means that he's documenting information not at the time that he did it. He also violated the O for original by using scratch paper or sticky notes. We're not documenting our original information. And then this one could also be considered legible if he's using that Sharpie, because we want to be sure that we're using our blue or black pens as we're making our corrections. That was a good job on that question. All right, our next example, Terry is really tired. He completes his last quality check. Terry does not document the check before he leaves on Wednesday. Terry returns on Thursday and completes the check on the paperwork. He does not notify anyone. He just goes, finds the paperwork, and puts down the check as if he did it on Wednesday. What letter of our COA do we think Terry has violated?
I have 2 that say C and 1 that says A.
Okay. All right. So for this
accurate. I'm sorry.
Oh, actually, okay. So for this violation, it would be contemporaneous. So Terry should not document on Thursday without following his company policy. It is permissible to document information later, but we have to be sure that we follow our company's policy so that we acknowledge, hey, I documented this on Thursday. I actually performed the task on Wednesday, so that it doesn't become a question of, did I forget to document the task or did I forget to do it altogether, which are 2 different scenarios. So Terry should be sure to make sure all tasks are documented promptly as completed. All right. So Terry is cleaning the line for the next production lot. He forgets to sign the task and the task is now blank on the batch paperwork. So this instance, he completely forgot. The task is signed for, but he didn't put his name. So we did the task, but we don't know who did it. Let me rephrase that question. So what do you guys think Terry violated in this instance? The task is signed off, but we don't know who did it. So if we had a question and we wanted to know who cleaned the line last night, we don't know who the person is. What do we think Terry's violated in this instance?
I have 2 for accurate.
Okay, we have 1 attributable. So the correct answer for this situation would be attributable. We performed the cleaning and he has documented the cleaning was successful, but it's not attributable. We don't know who is responsible for this record entry because he forgot to sign his name. It would be unclear who completed the task and when it was completed if we needed to follow up. All right, our last example. Terry receives a measurement of 60.2 milligrams. Terry is inattentive and documents the entry as 62 0.0 milligrams. What component of Alcoa do we believe Terry has violated?
Three of three accurate.
Yep. So that was 100% correct as for the group. Terry should be careful to record accurate results. Depending on the inaccuracy, incorrect results can cause waste, product delays, or investigations. So let's say for this particular product, the maximum we are allowed to have is 61 milligrams. So by him documenting 62, we may be throwing product away. We may have to initiate a non-conforming product investigation. Maybe this is a product that was hot, which means that the customer needs the product quickly. So now we can't deliver, which is going to cause product delays. So we want to be sure that we're always documenting accurate information. All right. And our last topic today is going to be how to properly make corrections, since we do use pens. Does anybody have any questions regarding Alcoa? Okay. So how do we make a correction knowing that on our record, we cannot erase, we cannot use pencils or erasable pens? So we want to be sure when we make our corrections that they're made in a manner that we do not cover up the original entry. The original information must still clearly be visible. So how do we do that? We draw a single line through the original entry. We sign and date so that it's clear who made the correction. And then we're going to also include a reason for the correction as well. We never scribble out an entry or attempt to write over incorrect information. And abbreviations may be used if they're defined by local procedures at your employer. So pharmaceutical company A, they may use the abbreviation MI for missing information. Pharmaceutical company B may not use MI. They may use AI for additional information. So any abbreviations that are acceptable, your company will define those for you and make sure that you understand what acceptable abbreviations are, and you only want to use abbreviations that are approved. So the wrong way to make a correction would be to scribble over the incorrect data and attempt to write over the data. So our quantity was documented as 15, and it's actually 20. What we do not want to do is scribble over. The right way to make a correction would be to draw a single line through the incorrect entry through the number 15, write the correct value. We have our approved abbreviation, and then we signed and we date it. So if anybody has any questions, whatever the EE stands for in this case, it stands for entry error. I made a mistake in my entry. We could refer to the signature here, and this was done on March the 17th of 2013 if we had any questions. So just to summarize, we do a single line, we sign, we date, and then we only want to use approved abbreviations. So we have two options here. We have option A and option B. Which of the following corrections was completed properly? And for the improper correction, if anyone would like to explain why that correction is incomplete or what is missing from that correction. So I documented my date as May the 21st, 2022, and it should have been May 20th, 2022. I was a day ahead in my documentation.
Right now I have 2 people answered. If I can get the 3 people answered.
Okay.
There we go. I have 2 for option B, 1 for option A.
Okay.
And Michelle says the incorrect is missing the date the correction was made.
That is absolutely correct. Option A is missing the date that the correction was made. I have my single line. I corrected my entry. I know who did the entry, why we had to make the correction, but we do not know when did Ruth Suber correct this. So did the person correct it the same day? Was it 6 months later or a year later? So we want to be sure that we not only capture our correction, but include the date that we are making the correction as well. So very good job. And then finally, just consistency. Information such as dates, times, we've discussed abbreviations, are recorded to the company standard. We use military time so that we don't have to differentiate between AM and PM. So different companies may use AM, PM standard, or they may use military time. You want to be sure if your company uses month, day, and year for the date, that is the date, how you document on your records. If your company does not use the date first, we would not want to document that format on our records. And then that format can change from company to company, but it will be defined in their quality documents what the approved format is.
Ruth,
So,
did they put it on Greenwich time? I mean, how do they know what time zone?
what do you mean?
Well, there's a standard time used based on Greenwich in England for like universal time zones? But here, obviously, even in the States, even if it's, FDA monitored or whatever, we still have different time zones.
Yeah, we document based on our time zone. So we document our tasks based on Eastern time. So if I'm doing a task now at 1:40 my time, but then we have a sister site that's an hour behind and we're doing it at the same time, on their paperwork it would be 12:40. So we document relative to our time zone.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. But again, that, you may go to a company that says, hey, we're going to follow, the format that you were mentioning, and that'll be communicated, because it would have to be site specific and everybody will have to follow the same format. For instance, I was working on some documents with a lady from Ireland, and when she dated it, she put the day first. And I sent it back and I said, I think you put the wrong date. And she said, no, I put the right date. I just put it in my format. So I added a notation that she dated it in the format that's used at her Bosch and Lomb site. However, our date method is this, and then I signed and dated it. So if anybody had any questions, it was already clearly explained why her date looked different than my date. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. So Friday, you guys will be coming here for the skills assessment hands-on lab. We're gonna actually have a facility tour set up for you all, where you can kind of see how all these different processes we've talked about, as far as gowning, environmental controls, you'll get to see our sterilizer, you'll get to see the robot. So to kind of bring all of that together for you guys. And if Miss Joy hasn't sent out already, she'll send you guys some details, and it will have my desk phone as well as my cell phone if you guys get lost on the way here. Traffic on Pelham Road, if you're coming either way on 85 with the construction zone, is kind of hit or miss. So I would suggest if you use Waze, maybe check the traffic, listen to the news. A lot of us do it in the morning just because we don't know what Pelham Road exit may offer us in the morning. So just kind of give yourself some extra time to get here on Friday. And if you have any questions, you can call me as well, and I will meet all of you Friday. So does anybody have any questions?
No, thank you, Ruth. It's going to be fun meeting you on Friday.
Yep.
Okay.
Should they bring their resumes to this?
Please, 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 if you have a updated resume, please bring that with you. I think they're gonna have the representatives from the other sponsor companies come as well. I haven't confirmed yet. But please bring your resume. You want to wear have some closed-toed shoes for the tour. No shorts, no tank tops. What else? No long dangly jewelry. It's okay if you want to wear it, but we'll ask you to take it off and maybe put it in your pocket when you go out on the actual production area for your tour.
Let's make sure we remember that this is a job fair afterwards, so make sure you are presentable.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And if you want to have like some dressier shoes, maybe for the job fair part, if you want to change your shoes, of course you can just bring them in a bag. That's fine. But just no open toes or no heels out on the floor. We wouldn't want anybody to get hurt.
Do you require steel toes?
We do not require them for the tour, depending on what work area you will be assigned to permanently. Some of the work areas do require steel toes.
Okay.
But you do not have to wear them for the tour portion. We just want you to have closed-toed shoes and no high heels, no wedges, anything like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys. And I'll see you all.
Thank you.
I'll see y'all Friday morning.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Ruth.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.